The small purple bottle sat innocently on the edge of our bathroom sink, partially hidden behind the hand soap. I might have missed it entirely if I hadn't dropped my earring. As I crouched to search the tile floor, the unfamiliar packaging caught my eye. Intimacy enhancer, warming lubricant. I froze, earring forgotten. In our 12 years of marriage, Darren and I had never used lubricant. Not once. My name is Gracie Bogart, a 38-year-old high school English teacher from Portland. My husband Darren, 40, worked as a marketing executive at a sportswear company headquartered downtown. We had what I'd always considered a comfortable life. A renovated craftsman in a good neighborhood, no children by mutual choice, and a marriage that, while perhaps not burning with passion after 12 years, felt solid and dependable. Or so I thought. With trembling fingers, I picked up the bottle. It was half empty. The safety seal was broken, and a dried residue circled the cap. This wasn't new. This wasn't unopened. This had been used. I sank onto the edge of the bathtub, my mind racing to find an innocent explanation. Perhaps Darren had bought it for us but hadn't mentioned it yet? But then why would it be partially used? A free sample from somewhere? But who gives out half-used samples? My phone chimed from the bedroom, the alarm reminding me I had 30 minutes until first period. I quickly snapped a photo of the bottle, then returned it exactly as I'd found it. Whatever this meant, I needed more information before confronting Darren. The school day passed in a blur. I mechanically guided my juniors through The Great Gatsby, somehow maintaining my composure while my inner world tilted on its axis. During my planning period, I found myself Googling the brand of lubricant, learning it was sold at most drugstores. Nothing exotic, nothing that provided any clues. I texted Darren casually during lunch. Thinking of making pasta tonight. Will you be home by 7? His response came quickly. Can't tonight. Strategy meeting running late. Don't wait up. Another late night. The third this week. Had there always been this many late meetings, or had I simply not been paying attention? I tried to recall when Darren's schedule had intensified. Perhaps 3 months ago? Around the time the new marketing director had been hired. Miranda something. Young, ambitious, with degrees from impressive universities. Darren had mentioned her several times, always professionally, always appropriately. Yet now, with the lubricant discovery coloring my perspective, I wondered if I'd missed subtle signs. When I arrived home, the house felt emptier than usual. I moved through the rooms, seeing them with new awareness. Had Darren entertained someone here while I was at work? I checked our bedroom for signs. Unfamiliar perfume, a stray hair on the pillow, but found nothing obvious. I returned to the bathroom and found the lubricant still in place. After a moment's hesitation, I took it and hid it in my drawer. If Darren noticed it missing, his reaction would tell me something. After an hour of pretending to grade papers while actually staring at the same paragraph, I decided to be more proactive. I knew Darren's password for his laptop. We'd never been the type to hide our devices from each other. I opened his computer and checked his browser history. Nothing suspicious: work emails, sports websites, Amazon searches for birthday gifts. Mine was next month. Just as I was about to close the laptop, feeling slightly ashamed of my snooping, I noticed the Google Chrome icon showed multiple windows open. I clicked, revealing a second browser window with its own tabs. My heart stopped. Hotel reservations. 3 different dates over the past month, all at the Riverfront Marriott downtown. Confirmation emails sent to Darren's personal account. Each reservation was for a standard king room. Check-in at 4 p.m., check-out same day. Day use only. No overnights. The most recent reservation was for tomorrow, Wednesday. Another strategy meeting night, no doubt. I took screenshots of everything, then carefully restored the browser to exactly how I'd found it. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the laptop. At 11:30 p.m., I heard Darren's key in the door. I had long since turned out the lights and laid in bed, pretending to sleep. He moved quietly through his nighttime routine, hanging up his suit, brushing his teeth, checking his phone one last time. When he finally slipped into bed beside me, I could smell unfamiliar cologne mixing with the mint of his toothpaste. He hadn't worn cologne this morning. "Gracie," he whispered. "You awake?" I kept my breathing deep and even. After a moment, he turned away and was soon asleep, unaware that his wife lay beside him with eyes wide open, planning her next move. Tomorrow, while Darren was at work, I would visit the Riverfront Marriott. I needed to see this place, to make the betrayal concrete in my mind before confronting him. And perhaps, if timing aligned, I might finally meet the mysterious Miranda, the colleague who warranted private hotel rooms and warming lubricant. As Darren's soft snores filled our bedroom, I slid my hand beneath my pillow, feeling the smooth plastic of the lubricant bottle I'd hidden there. Physical evidence of the lies that had invaded our marriage. What Darren didn't know as he slept peacefully beside me was that I'd already composed an email to my principal requesting a personal day tomorrow, and had set an alarm for 3 p.m., giving me plenty of time to arrive at the Marriott before his 4 p.m. meeting with whoever had replaced me in his affections. The Riverfront Marriott gleamed in the afternoon sun, its glass facade reflecting the Willamette River flowing nearby. I sat in my car across the street, watching the entrance through dark sunglasses. It was 3:40 p.m. Darren would have left his office by now, perhaps already on his way here. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours last night, my mind cycling through 12 years of memories, searching for signs I'd missed. The occasional late meetings that had become more frequent. The business trips that seemed to multiply. His sudden interest in upgrading his wardrobe and joining a gym 6 months ago. The gradual decline in our physical intimacy, which I'd attributed to the natural evolution of a long-term relationship. All the classic signs, now painfully obvious. My phone chimed with a text from Brenda, my closest friend and fellow English teacher. Are you there yet? Remember, just confirmation. No confrontation. Not in public. Brenda had been my midnight call when sleep proved impossible. She'd listened, suggested caution, and offered to accompany me. I'd declined, needing to do this alone. In position, I texted back. We'll update soon. At 3:50 p.m., a silver Audi pulled into the hotel's circular drive. My breath caught Darren's car. He emerged looking polished in his charcoal suit, checking his reflection in the window before entering the hotel. No overnight back. Just his leather briefcase. I waited 5 excruciating minutes, then followed. The hotel lobby buzzed with business travelers and tourists. Darren was nowhere in sight. I approached the reception desk, where a young man with a name tag reading Tyler greeted me with a professional smile. Welcome to Riverfront Marriott. How may I assist you today? I'd prepared for this, rehearsing my story during the sleepless night. Itile. This is a bit awkward, but my husband is surprising me with a room for our anniversary. He said he'd leave my name on the reservation, so I could get ready before he arrives. Bogart. Tyler typed on his computer. I don't see a Bogart checking in today. Could it be under another name? Oh, I feigned confusion. Maybe he used his company account. He works for Apex Sportswear. Darren Bogart. Another search. I'm sorry, nothing under that name either. My certainty wavered briefly. Had I misunderstood the reservations? Or had Darren changed his plans? Would you like me to check if he's already checked in? Tyler offered helpfully. Yes, please. More typing. I don't see a Darren Bogart currently checked in. I'm sorry about the confusion. I thanked him and retreated to a cluster of armchairs in the lobby, pretending to check my phone while I reconsidered my approach. If Darren had made the reservation, he should be here. Unless. A woman's laugh drew my attention to the hotel bar adjacent to the lobby. Through the dim lighting, I could make out Darren sitting at a corner table, his back to me. Across from him sat a woman with sleek dark hair, leaning forward intently. Even from behind, I recognized Miranda Zhang, the new marketing director Darren had hired 3 months ago. My suspicions crystallized into certainty. I pulled out my phone and discreetly took several photos of them together. In one, Miranda's hand reached across the table to touch Darren's arm. In another, Darren raised his glass in what appeared to be a toast. I considered confronting them immediately, but remembered Brenda's advice. Not in public. Not where Darren could control the narrative or minimize the situation. I needed more evidence, more leverage for the conversation that would inevitably follow. After 20 minutes of agonizing observation, Darren and Miranda stood. He placed his hand on the small of her back as they walked not toward the elevators, but toward the exit. I ducked behind a large decorative plant, watching as they left the hotel and crossed to the riverside path behind the property. Confusion replaced certainty. If they weren't using the hotel room, why make the reservation? I returned to the reception desk, where Tyler was now assisting another guest. I waited patiently until he was free. Excuse me, Tyler. One more question. My husband sometimes books rooms for his business colleagues. Could you check if there's a reservation under Miranda Zhang? Tyler looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, but I can't provide information about other guests. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Please. I think my husband is having an affair. I just need to know. Tyler's professional demeanor cracked slightly. He glanced around, then whispered, I can't confirm specific names, but I can tell you there is an Apex Sportswear corporate account with a reservation today. Room 718. Corporate rate. I thanked him profusely and headed toward the elevators, my heart pounding. The 7th floor hallway was quiet and anonymous, identical doors lining both sides. I found 718 and stood before it, uncertain of my next move. Should I knock? What if they returned and found me here? As I debated, the door suddenly opened. I stepped back quickly, expecting to see Darren or Miranda. Instead, a hotel housekeeper emerged pushing a cleaning cart. Oh, I'm sorry, she startled. Did you need to get in? An idea formed instantly. Yes, actually. I think my husband left his medication in there earlier today. We were here for a meeting. I fumbled in my purse. I don't have a key. She hesitated. I'm not supposed to let anyone in without a key. Please, I said, trying to look desperate rather than vengeful. His heart medication. It's important. Perhaps she recognized the pain in my eyes, albeit misinterpreting its source. She glanced down the empty hallway, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. I'll wait here. Thank you, I whispered, slipping past her. The room was immaculate, freshly cleaned with corners tucked and surfaces gleaming. The bed showed no signs of recent use. The bathroom was spotless, towels perfectly aligned. If Darren and Miranda had used this room earlier, the housekeeper had already erased all evidence. I checked drawers, closets, even under the bed, unsure what I was looking for but desperate for concrete proof. Nothing. As I moved to leave, something caught my eye. A small white rectangle partially visible beneath the edge of the desk. I crouched down and retrieved it. A business card. Miranda Zhang, Marketing Director, Apex Sportswear. On the back, handwritten in what I recognized as Darren's distinctive scrawl. Same time next week. Can't wait. I pocketed the card and thanked the housekeeper, leaving a generous tip despite my shaking hands. Back in my car, I tried to make sense of what I'd discovered. Darren and Miranda had reserved a hotel room but apparently hadn't used it, at least not today. They'd met in the bar, then left together. And yet, Miranda's business card with Darren's note confirmed ongoing plan meetings. Perhaps today's plans had changed. Perhaps they'd gone somewhere else. Or perhaps I'd arrived after they'd already used the room. I pulled out my phone and texted Darren. Working late tonight. Teacher conference. Don't wait up. His response came almost immediately. No problem. I'm stuck at the office anyway. Major deadline. The lie stung worse than I'd anticipated. I started my car and headed not home, but toward the Apex Sportswear headquarters. If Darren was stuck at the office, I wanted to see his car in the parking garage. 15 minutes later, I slowly circled the company's designated parking area. No sign of Darren's silver Audi. Another lie. I parked and entered the building's lobby. The security guard recognized me from company parties and waved me through with a friendly greeting. I took the elevator to the 14th floor where marketing was located. The office was quiet, most employees having left for the day. A few dedicated souls remained at their desks, including Peter Kim, Darren's longtime colleague and friend. Gracie, Peter looked up in surprise. What brings you by? Looking for Darren, I said casually. He's not answering his phone. Peter frowned. Darren left hours ago. Said he had meetings off-site. Do you know who with? Peter's hesitation told me everything. I'm not sure, he finally said, not meeting my eyes. Maybe check with his assistant? I thanked him and wandered toward Darren's office, finding his assistant, Jen, still at her desk. Mrs. Bogart. Darren's not here right now. He had external meetings all afternoon. With Miranda Zhang? I asked bluntly. Jen's expression flickered between surprise and discomfort. I'm not sure of his full schedule. It's okay, Jen. I know about them. A bluff, but one I hoped would yield results. Jen glanced around nervously, then leaned forward. Look, I just schedule what he tells me to schedule. The hotel reservations, the strategy sessions, I don't ask questions. How long has it been going on? Since she started, I think. 3 months at least. Jen looked genuinely sympathetic. I'm sorry, Mrs. Bogart. I thought maybe you had an arrangement. The suggestion that I might have consented to my husband's infidelity added insult to injury. I thanked Jen for her honesty and left, feeling the weight of multiple confirmations pressing against my chest. In my car, I finally allowed the tears to come. 3 months. Not a one-time mistake or a brief lapse in judgment, but a sustained, deliberate betrayal involving hotel rooms, lies to colleagues, and apparently, warming lubricant. As I drove home through the gathering dusk, my sadness gradually hardened into something else. Determination. Darren didn't know I'd discovered his affair. That gave me time. Time to gather more evidence, time to consult a lawyer, time to decide exactly how I wanted to handle this betrayal. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I had composed myself. I would not confront Darren tonight. I would play the unsuspecting wife while I planned my next steps carefully. The lubricant bottle remained hidden in my drawer, a ticking time bomb waiting for the perfect moment of detonation. What Darren didn't realize as he texted me another lie about working late at the office was that I'd already spoken with his assistant, photographed him with Miranda, and found his handwritten note promising future rendezvous. All evidence being carefully compiled in a password-protected folder on my laptop labeled innocuously as anniversary plans. For the next week, I lived a double life. By day, I taught Hamlet to my students, discussing themes of betrayal and revenge with an intensity my colleagues noticed but didn't question. By night, I played the role of unsuspecting wife, maintaining our routine while secretly documenting Darren's every inconsistency. The lubricant remained hidden in my drawer. Darren never mentioned it, never searched for it, either because he had another bottle elsewhere, or because it had never been meant for our bedroom in the first place. I met with Diana Spencer, a divorce attorney Brenda had recommended, bringing my growing file of evidence. Photos of Darren and Miranda, screenshots of hotel reservations, a detailed log of his late meetings cross-referenced with his actual whereabouts confirmed through the Life 360 app I'd convinced him to install for safety. You have enough to establish infidelity, Diana confirmed, reviewing my materials. Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, but evidence of an affair can sometimes impact property division, especially if marital assets were used to finance the relationship. I don't want revenge, I clarified. I want fairness, and I want to be prepared before I confront him. Diana nodded approvingly. Most clients come to me after the explosive confrontation, when emotions are raw and mistakes have been made. Your approach is smarter. She helped me understand my financial position, the house we own together, our retirement accounts, the investment portfolio Darren managed. She advised me to gather additional financial documentation and to secure copies of our important papers. And don't move out of the house no matter what, she emphasized. It can complicate property claims later. I left her office with a plan and a timeline. 1 more week of evidence gathering, then the confrontation. Not in anger, but from a position of strength and preparation. That evening, Darren called to inform me of an unexpected business trip. Seattle for 2 days, he explained. Marketing retreat with the executive team. I leave tomorrow. The whole team? I asked innocently. Including Miranda? A barely perceptible pause. Yes, she'll be there. Along with the entire department. Sounds important, I said, keeping my voice neutral. When do you return? Friday evening. I'll text you my flight details. After we hung up, I immediately called Jen, Darren's assistant, under the pretense of arranging a surprise for his trip. She confirmed what I already suspected. There was no full department retreat. Only Darren and Miranda were traveling to Seattle. That night, while Darren packed, I slipped into his home office and carefully photographed recent credit card statements, bank records, and investment accounts. Nothing obviously suspicious appeared in our finances, but Diana had advised me to establish a baseline for comparison. Thursday passed quietly. Darren texted from Seattle with mundane updates about meetings and meals. I responded appropriately while continuing my preparation. I opened a separate bank account in my name only and transferred a reasonable portion of our joint savings. Not enough to be vindictive, but enough to ensure short-term security. Friday morning, I received a text from Darren. Meetings running long. Taking later flight. Home around 10 p.m. More time for me to prepare. I spent the evening finalizing my approach, rehearsing what I would say when he returned. The evidence was organized, my emotions were controlled, and my boundary was clear. I would not accept lies or minimization. At 9:45 p.m., I heard a car in the driveway. I quickly checked my appearance in the hallway mirror. Casual in jeans and a sweater, hair loose, minimal makeup. Not dressed for battle, but not appearing vulnerable either. Darren entered looking tired but satisfied, rolling his carry-on behind him. "Hey," he greeted me with a quick kiss on the cheek. "Sorry about the delay." "How was Seattle?" I asked, helping him with his jacket. "Productive. Exhausting. The usual." He moved toward the kitchen. "Any wine open?" "I just opened a Cabernet." I followed him, watching as he poured a generous glass. "Successful meetings?" "Very. I think we finally have alignment on the fall campaign." He loosened his tie, taking a long sip of wine. "How was your week?" "Illuminating," I said carefully. "I made some discoveries." Something in my tone caught his attention. He looked at me more closely. "What kind of discoveries?" I walked to the kitchen drawer and retrieved the purple lubricant bottle, placing it silently on the counter between us. The color drained from Darren's face. "Where did you find that?" "Where you left it." "In our bathroom. A week ago." I kept my voice steady. "That was careless, Darren." He set down his wine glass carefully. "Gracie, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're excellent at explanations. Like explaining why you were at the Riverfront Marriott on Wednesday when you were supposedly at the office. Or why you and Miranda were in Seattle alone, not with the entire department as you claimed." His eyes widened. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been verifying your lies," I corrected. "There's a difference." Darren ran a hand through his hair, his mind visibly racing through possible responses. Finally he sighed. "How long have you known?" "About the affair?" "Since finding this." I indicated the lubricant. "About the extent of your deception?" "That's been a gradual process of discovery." He slumped against the counter. "It's not what you think." "It never is it?" I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "Let me tell you what I think, and you can correct any misunderstandings. I think you've been having an affair with Miranda Zhang for approximately 3 months. I think you've used company funds to book hotel rooms for your encounters. I think you've lied to me, to your colleagues, and to your friends about your whereabouts and your relationship with her." Darren stared at me, seemingly shocked by the precision of my assessment. "Am I wrong?" I pressed. After a long moment he shook his head. "No." The admission, despite all my evidence and certainty, still felt like a physical blow. I took a deep breath, determined to maintain my composure. "Why?" It was the question I'd promised myself I wouldn't ask, knowing there was no answer that could possibly justify his actions. Yet it escaped anyway. Darren looked genuinely pained. "It just happened, Gracie. We were working late. One thing led to another. I never intended to get caught." I finished for him. "You never intended to get caught." "To hurt you," he corrected. "I never wanted to hurt you." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Yet here we are. We stood in silence, the lubricant bottle between us like a bizarre centerpiece. "What happens now?" Darren finally asked. "Now we discuss separation," I said calmly. "I've consulted an attorney. I'm aware of our financial position. I know what I'm entitled to." His expression shifted from remorse to calculation. "You've been busy." "I've been protective," I countered. Just as you've been protective of your relationship with Miranda. It's over with Miranda, he said quickly. It was a mistake. I ended it in Seattle. I raised an eyebrow. Did you? Before or after I found the lubricant? His silence confirmed my suspicion. Another lie. I don't believe you, I said simply. But honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. The trust is gone. We could try counseling, he suggested. People recover from affairs, Gracie. Marriages survive this kind of thing all the time. I studied him. This man I'd loved for 12 years, whose ambition I'd supported, whose dreams I'd helped build. Even now, faced with incontrovertible evidence of his betrayal, he was strategizing, looking for the angle that would minimize his losses. I don't want to survive this, I said quietly. I want more than a marriage held together by compromise and suspicion. Darren's phone buzzed on the counter. We both looked at it, Miranda's name clearly visible on the screen. You should get that, I said. Clearly the ending didn't take. He ignored the phone. Gracie, please. 12 years. That has to count for something. It did. It counted for honesty, for respect, for fidelity. All things you discarded for warming lubricant and hotel quickies. His expression hardened. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Darren. I moved toward the doorway. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow we can discuss logistics. I suggest you use the time to consider what kind of divorce you want, amicable or adversarial. I'd prefer the former, but I'm prepared for either. As I turned to leave, he called after me. I do love you, Gracie, despite everything. I paused but didn't turn around. That's the saddest part of all this. I believe you, but love without respect isn't enough. In the guest room, I sat on the edge of the bed, surprisingly calm. The confrontation had gone largely as I'd anticipated. Darren had moved from denial to minimization to bargaining, the predictable stages of someone caught in a betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from Brenda. How did it go? Do you need me to come over? I replied. It's done. He admitted everything. I'm okay. Talk tomorrow. As I prepared for bed, I heard Darren moving around downstairs, opening and closing cabinets, the clink of his wine glass being refilled. At one point, I heard his muffled voice. Speaking to Miranda, no doubt, crafting yet another version of events. Despite the heaviness of the situation, I felt an unexpected lightness. The secret keeping was over. The pretense had ended. Whatever came next would be difficult but honest. I slept surprisingly well, waking to pale morning light filtering through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, I forgot why I was in the guest room. Then reality reasserted itself. Downstairs, I found Darren already dressed, sitting at the kitchen island with coffee and his laptop. The lubricant bottle had disappeared from the counter. Morning, he said cautiously. I made coffee. Thanks. I poured myself a cup, maintaining distance between us. I've been thinking about what you said, he began. About an amicable divorce. I nodded, waiting. I want that too, he continued. No drawn-out legal battle. No public spectacle. Of course he wanted to avoid public exposure. His career, his reputation, those had always been his priorities. That's possible, I said. If we're both transparent and fair. Darren closed his laptop. I'll move out. Today. You can stay in the house until we decide what to do with it. His quick capitulation surprised me. I'd expected more resistance, more attempts at reconciliation. What about Miranda? I couldn't help asking. He looked away. That's over. Genuinely over. Whether I believed him or not no longer mattered. I sipped my coffee, considering our next steps. I'll have my lawyer contact yours next week, I said. In the meantime, we should establish some ground rules about communication and finances. We spent the next hour in the most honest conversation we'd had in months, possibly years. Darren agreed to a fair division of assets. I promised not to disclose his affair to our social circle unless necessary. We discussed practical matters, bill payments, mail forwarding, notifying family. By noon, Darren had packed several suitcases and loaded them into his car. He paused at the front door, looking lost despite his careful planning. I am sorry, Gracie. Not just for the affair, but for who I became. Someone who could hurt you this way. I nodded, acknowledging his apology without accepting it yet. I hope you figure out why. For your own sake. After he left, I walked through our suddenly spacious home, feeling both bereft and relieved. On the kitchen counter, I noticed an envelope with my name. Inside was a bank receipt showing a transfer of $50,000 to my new personal account. A gesture of remorse, perhaps, or pragmatic damage control. I called Brenda, who arrived 30 minutes later with wine and takeout despite the early hour. So he just left? She asked incredulously after I recounted the morning's events. No fight? No trying to make you the villain? I think he recognized he was outmaneuvered, I said. I had evidence, legal advice, and emotional control. Fighting would only make things worse for him. Brenda raised her glass. To preparation and dignity in the face of betrayal. We clinked glasses, and for the first time since finding the lubricant, I felt the beginning of what might eventually be peace. What Darren didn't understand as he drove away from our shared home was that my calm acceptance of our separation wasn't defeat or resignation. It was the first step in reclaiming my life and identity, a process I'd already begun by applying for a summer fellowship in creative writing, something I'd put off for years to accommodate his career and our marriage. 3 months after discovering the lubricant, I sat across from Diana Spencer in her office, signing the final divorce papers. The process had been surprisingly straightforward. Darren had agreed to all my terms, eager to conclude our marriage quietly and without contested court appearances. Congratulations, Diana said, gathering the signed documents. This is one of the smoothest divorces I've handled. Usually when infidelity is involved, emotions complicate the legal process. I did my crying before we started negotiations, I admitted. It helped that Darren was motivated to avoid public scrutiny. Indeed, Darren's primary concern throughout our separation had been discretion. He'd told colleagues and friends that we had grown apart and wanted different things. Technically true if incomplete. I'd honored our agreement not to volunteer information about his affair, though I hadn't lied when directly asked. As I left Diana's office, I felt a curious mixture of sadness and liberation. 12 years of marriage concluded with a signature. The gold band I'd removed months ago had left a faint tan line that was finally fading. My phone buzzed with a text from Brenda. Done? Celebration dinner still on. I confirmed our plans and headed home. Not to the Craftsman that Darren and I had shared, which was now on the market, but to my new apartment overlooking the park. Smaller, but entirely mine, decorated according to my preferences without compromising for someone else's taste. The settlement had been fair. I kept half the proceeds from the house sale, my retirement accounts, and a portion of our investments. Darren kept his business interests and paid off our remaining debts. No alimony either way, we both had solid incomes and no children to support. As I changed for dinner, I reflected on how much had shifted since that morning in the bathroom. Beyond the practical changes of address and legal status, I'd experienced a profound internal transformation. The betrayal had forced me to reconsider not just my marriage, but my entire life path. I'd accepted the summer writing fellowship I'd long deferred, spending 6 weeks at a coastal retreat developing the novel I'd been conceptualizing for years. I'd joined a hiking group that explored trails throughout the Pacific Northwest. I'd reconnected with old friends Darren had never particularly liked. At dinner with Brenda, we toasted the finalization of my divorce. To new beginnings, she said, raising her glass. And to unexpected endings, I added. Without which the new beginnings wouldn't be possible. Have you heard anything about Darren lately? Brenda asked after our entrees arrived. I shook my head. Not directly. Peter mentioned he's transferred to the Chicago office. A promotion, apparently. And Miranda? Still at Apex, from what I gather. They must have decided a relationship wasn't worth the career complications. Brenda snorted. So he betrayed both of you in the end. I'm not sure it's that simple, I said, surprising myself with the insight. Darren loves his work more than he could ever love a person. Miranda probably discovered that the same way I did, just under different circumstances. You're being remarkably generous. Not generous. Just clear-eyed. The distance helps. After dinner, Brenda hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, Gracie. Not everyone handles betrayal with such grace. Trust me, grace wasn't my first reaction, I reminded her. Remember the night I found the lubricant? I called you in tears, ready to burn his clothes on the front lawn. Yet you didn't. You planned. You protected yourself. That's wisdom, not weakness. At home, I opened my laptop to work on my novel, a story about a woman rebuilding her life after loss, finding strength she never knew she possessed. Not autobiographical, I told myself, though the parallels were obvious. A notification appeared on my screen, an email from Darren, the first direct communication we'd had in weeks. Gracie, I heard the divorce was finalized today. I wanted to say I'm sorry again for everything. I'm starting therapy next week. Too late for us, but hopefully not too late for me to understand why I sabotaged the best thing in my life. I wish you every happiness. You deserve it. And I stared at the message, unsure how to respond or whether to respond at all. Finally, I typed a simple reply. Thank you for letting me know. I hope you find the answers you're looking for. Take care of yourself, Darren. After sending it, I closed my laptop and walked to the window, gazing at the park below where couples strolled hand in hand and families spread picnic blankets in the fading evening light. 6 months ago, such a scene would have filled me with melancholy. Reminders of the partnership I'd lost, the family we'd chosen not to have. Now I viewed it differently, not as something missing from my life, but as one of many possible life patterns, no more or less valid than my emerging path. The next morning, I woke to another email, this one from my publisher confirming interest in my novel manuscript. The timing felt significant, one chapter truly closing as another opened. I celebrated alone with coffee on my balcony, watching the city come alive beneath me. My phone rang, my mother calling from Florida. It's official? She asked without preamble. As of yesterday, I'm legally Gracie Parker again. How do you feel, sweetheart? I considered the question carefully. Peaceful. Sad sometimes. Excited mostly. That sounds about right, she said. The sadness will fade. The excitement will grow. After we hung up, I found myself thinking about the lubricant bottle, the small, innocuous object that had altered the trajectory of my life. I'd returned it to the bathroom drawer after confronting Darren, and he'd taken it when he moved out. Such a mundane item to have catalyzed such profound change. Later that week, I received a large envelope in the mail, documents from the house closing. Darren had handled the final walkthrough since I'd been at my writing retreat. Among the papers was a handwritten note. Found this in the bathroom drawer during cleaning. Thought you might want it for closure. And beneath the note was a photograph of the purple lubricant bottle, placed in the recycling bin. His attempt at symbolic closure, perhaps, or acknowledgement of how a small oversight had led to life-altering consequences. I pinned the photo to my bulletin board, not out of bitterness or as a reminder of betrayal, but as a testament to how unplanned discoveries can sometimes be the catalysts we need to examine our lives more honestly. That evening, I attended a book launch for a local author at Powell's Books. The room buzzed with literary energy, writers, readers, critics, all celebrating the power of storytelling. I'd been to dozens of such events during my marriage, always feeling slightly on the periphery, a teacher who dreamed of writing rather than a writer herself. Tonight felt different. I belonged here now, not just as an observer but as a participant. My novel was under consideration. My voice was emerging. Gracie. A man approached, vaguely familiar. Mark Davidson. We met at the Summer Writing Fellowship. I remembered him, quiet, thoughtful, with insightful feedback on my early chapters. Of course. How are you, Mark? Good. I just sold my collection of short stories. That's actually why I'm here, reconnecting with the literary community. We fell into easy conversation about writing processes and publishing challenges. When he suggested continuing our discussion over coffee after the event, I found myself accepting without hesitation or analysis. The coffee shop was crowded but cozy. Mark asked about my novel's progress, listening attentively to my explanation of recent revisions. He spoke of his own work with passion but without ego. The conversation flowed naturally, touching on books, films, hiking trails, connections forming without effort or agenda. I should mention, I said during a pause, I'm recently divorced. Very recently. Mark nodded. I appreciate your honesty. No pressure or expectations here. Just enjoying good conversation with a fellow writer. The simplicity of his response was refreshing. No awkward reassurances, no probing questions, just acknowledgement and continuation. As we parted ways, he asked if I'd like to attend a literary festival the following month. As colleagues, he clarified. Several authors from our fellowship will be there. I agreed, exchanging contact information with a sense of openness rather than anticipation. Whatever developed, friendship, professional connection, something more eventually, would unfold naturally, without the weight of expectations. Walking home under star-scattered skies, I realized I was genuinely smiling. Not the practiced expression I'd maintained during the difficult months of separation, but an authentic reflection of internal contentment. The betrayal that had seemed world-ending had instead been world-changing. The pain had been real, the loss significant. Yet here I stood, 6 months later, moving forward with increasing confidence. Not because I'd found someone new or achieved external validation, but because I'd rediscovered my own resilience and capacity for growth. The lubricant in the bathroom had revealed my husband's infidelity, but more importantly, it had revealed my own strength. A discovery far more valuable than the relationship I'd lost. What Darren could never understand as he transferred to Chicago with his promotion, and his regrets, was that his betrayal, while painful, had ultimately given me a gift. The push I needed to reclaim my postponed dreams and discover that the life I truly wanted had been waiting for me all along, requiring only the courage to step beyond the comfortable limitations of our marriage. 1 year to the day after finding the lubricant, I stood in a crowded bookstore, heart pounding as I prepared to read from my newly published novel. The audience filled every seat. Colleagues from school, members of my writing group, friends who had supported me through divorce and renewal, and faces I didn't recognize, readers drawn by reviews and recommendations. My novel, The Things We Find, had been released 2 weeks earlier to surprising acclaim. The story of a woman discovering unexpected strength through betrayal had resonated with readers and critics alike. Not autobiographical, I maintained in interviews, though informed by personal understanding of loss and recovery. From the back of the room, Mark caught my eye and gave a discreet thumbs up. Our relationship had evolved gradually over the past 9 months, first as writing colleagues, then friends, and recently something more. He understood my caution, my need for independence after years of compromised dreams. He was patient, supportive without being possessive. Most importantly, he respected my work with the genuine admiration of a fellow creator. As I began reading selected passages, I saw Brenda in the front row, smiling encouragement. Beside her sat my mother, who had flown in from Florida specially for this event. Their presence anchored me as I shared words that had flowed during long nights of healing and transformation. The reading concluded to warm applause. During the Q&A session that followed, a woman raised her hand. Your protagonist discovers her husband's affair through finding evidence he carelessly left behind, she said. What inspired that particular plot point? The audience quieted, perhaps sensing the personal nature of the question. I paused, considering my response. Sometimes the smallest oversights reveal the largest truths, I said carefully. In fiction as in life, it's often the mundane details that spark profound change. The woman nodded, seemingly satisfied with my diplomatic answer. I caught Brenda's knowing smile. She alone understood the precise reality behind the fiction. After signing books for a long line of readers, I joined my support circle for dinner at a nearby restaurant. The conversation flowed with wine and laughter, a celebration not just of literary success, but of personal resilience. A toast, Brenda announced, raising her glass. To Gracie, who turned heartbreak into art and loss into opportunity. And to all of you, I added, who helped me discover that endings are often beginnings in disguise. Later that night, as Mark and I walked through the park near my apartment, he asked about my plans for the future. My publisher wants another book, I said. I'm considering options. Fiction again? Or perhaps a memoir? he asked, his voice free of pressure or expectation. I smiled. Fiction, definitely. Reality is just the starting point. The freedom comes in the reimagining. He nodded, understanding. Speaking of futures, I got an offer from that writing residency in New Mexico. 3 months starting in January. That's wonderful, I exclaimed, genuinely pleased for him despite the implications for our evolving relationship. You have to accept. I already did, he admitted. But I wanted you to know that distance doesn't change how I feel about us. Whatever us is becoming. I squeezed his hand, appreciating his honesty and independence. So different from Darren, who had expected his career to always take priority, who had seen my ambitions as secondary. 3 months will fly by, I said. And I have a book to write anyway. We parted that night with a kiss that held promise without demand. No declarations of eternal love, no desperate assurances, just genuine connection between two people building separate but complementary lives. The following morning, I woke to an email notification. A message from Darren, the first in several months. Congratulations on your novel. I saw the review in the Times. Always knew you had this talent, even when I didn't support it properly. I'm sorry for that among many things. I'm doing better in therapy, learning to recognize what matters. Too late for us, but maybe not too late for me. Wishing you continued success. And I sat with the message for several minutes, appreciating its sincerity while recognizing its limitations. Darren was still centering himself, still seeing my achievement primarily through the lens of his failure. Progress for him, perhaps, but confirmation for me that our paths had rightfully diverged. I replied with simple thanks for his good wishes, then turned my attention to the day ahead. A meeting with my editor to discuss my next book, followed by lunch with a screenwriter interested in adapting The Things We Find for film. As I prepared to leave, I caught sight of the framed photo on my desk, not a personal photograph, but the image of the purple lubricant bottle in the recycling bin that Darren had sent after our house sold. I'd had it professionally framed, a conversation piece that confused visitors, but reminded me daily of how unexpected discoveries can catalyze necessary change. The bottle itself was long gone, but its impact remained, a small, ordinary object that had revealed extraordinary truths. About Darren's infidelity, yes, but more importantly about my capacity for resilience, my untapped potential, my willingness to rebuild rather than merely repair. Outside, autumn painted Portland in vibrant hues of red and gold. I walked through falling leaves toward my future, no longer defined by betrayal, but by the strength I'd discovered in its aftermath. The lubricant had exposed my husband's affair with a colleague, but it had revealed something far more valuable to me. The possibility of a life redesigned according to my own dreams, uncompromised by another's limitations. Not everyone understood why I kept the photograph, this memento of betrayal, but I recognized it for what it truly was. Not a reminder of what I had lost, but evidence of what I had found. 2 years after the discovery that ended my marriage, I stood at the podium accepting a literary award for my second novel. The audience applauded politely as I thanked my publisher, my editor, and the community of writers who had welcomed me into their ranks. And finally, I concluded, I want to thank the unexpected catalyst that started this journey. Sometimes our greatest opportunities arrive disguised as our worst moments. The trick is recognizing them for what they truly are, not endings but doorways. Later, at the reception, a young woman approached me clutching a dog-eared copy of my first book. Your novel helped me through my own divorce, she confided. I kept wondering how you knew exactly what it felt like. The shock, the grief, the strange liberation. I smiled. Writing is an act of empathy. We translate personal truth into universal experience. Was it based on your life? She asked hesitantly. The discovery of the affair? For a moment, I saw again the small purple bottle on my bathroom sink, the mundane object that had altered my life's trajectory. Let's just say I understand the territory, I replied. The map may differ, but the landmarks are familiar. She nodded, satisfied with the partial confession. The ending gave me hope that there's something worthwhile waiting on the other side of betrayal. There is, I assured her, though it's rarely what we expect. Indeed, My own path had contained numerous surprises. Mark and I had maintained our relationship through his residency and my book tour, eventually finding a rhythm that honored both our independence and our connection. My writing career had flourished beyond my cautious expectations. The teacher who had once squeezed writing into early mornings and late nights now taught only part-time, focusing primarily on her literary work. Darren had remarried, I'd heard through mutual friends. Someone from his Chicago office, a relationship that had apparently developed after proper disclosure to human resources. He'd sent a brief note when my second novel was published, noting that he was doing the work to become a better partner. I wished him well and meant it. Miranda had left Apex for a competitor, eventually relocating to New York. Our paths had never crossed again, for which I was grateful. Not from lingering anger, but from lack of relevance. She, like Darren, had become a character in my past rather than a presence in my present. As the reception wound down, I gathered my things, declining offers of after-parties in favor of returning to the quiet of my apartment. Not the first one I'd moved to after leaving Darren, but a newer, larger space overlooking the river, purchased with my advance for a 3-book deal. At home, I kicked off uncomfortable heels and changed into worn jeans and a soft sweater. Success had brought material comfort, but my greatest luxury remained simple autonomy. The freedom to follow my own rhythms without explanation or compromise. On my desk sat the first draft of my third novel, a departure from the themes of betrayal and recovery that had defined my earlier work. This story explored reinvention and second chances, reflecting my evolution beyond the identity of wronged wife into something more complex and self-determined. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "Congratulations. Wish I could have been there. Call when you get home." I smiled, appreciating his support without demand. Our relationship continued to develop at its own pace, neither of us rushing toward conventional milestones. We maintained separate homes while spending increasing time together, each preserving the independence we valued while building connection on our own terms. Before calling him, I took a moment to update the acknowledgments page for my next book. After thanking my professional team and personal supporters, I added a final line. "And to the unexpected discoveries that reveal our true paths, may we have the courage to follow where they lead." It was as close as I would come to publicly thanking the lubricant bottle that had exposed my husband's affair and, in doing so, set me free to become myself. Not all catalysts deserve credit, but all deserve recognition for their role in our transformation. As I reached for my phone to call Mark, I glanced at the framed photo on my bookshelf, the purple bottle in the recycling bin. I'd moved it from my desk to a less prominent position, a sign of its diminishing power in my daily thoughts. Still present, still acknowledged, but no longer central to my identity or future. The pain of betrayal had faded to an occasional echo, a reminder of lessons learned rather than wounds sustained. What remained was gratitude, not for the betrayal itself, but for the strength it had revealed, the opportunities it had created, the authentic life it had ultimately made possible. Sometimes the most profound discoveries begin with the smallest objects, left carelessly where they shouldn't be. A bottle of lubricant, a forgotten receipt, a stray business card. Mundane items that reveal extraordinary truths. In my case, the truth had been painful but necessary, not just about my husband's infidelity, but about the compromises I'd made long before he ever met Miranda. The dreams deferred, the identity diluted, the potential unrecognized. The lubricant had exposed his affair with a colleague, but more importantly, it had introduced me to myself. The writer, the risk-taker, the woman capable of rebuilding rather than merely enduring. For that unexpected gift, I remained paradoxically grateful. I picked up my phone and called Mark, ready to share my triumph and hear about his day. Two independent lives intersecting by choice rather than obligation. Whatever the future held, whether together or eventually apart, I would face it with the confidence of someone who had discovered her own resilience in the most unlikely of ways. And really, isn't that the most valuable discovery of all?
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.